Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains in Missouri, USA. Well, you might remember this little MCP40 printer plotter that we worked on about a month ago. And it cleaned up real nice and it almost worked, but there were a set of busted gears here that drive the paper. And I said at the time I had an idea on how to fix that, and that's what this video is about. So I haven't tried it on a real-life printer yet, so we'll do that together and we'll see if it works. Let's get started. Thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this episode. They offer an excellent quick-turn PCB prototyping service, which now has a free upgrade to the 150-160 temperature range. They also offer a wide range of services that allow you to go from idea to a finished product, including CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, PCB assembly. Go on over to pcbway.com/OEM to find out more. Before we start trying to fix the printer, let's have a look at what breaks, and we'll kind of do this in an extreme close-up here. So what the problem is you might just be able to see here the hub on this gear breaks. And that happens because plastic always shrinks as it ages, and the metal shaft this is pressed onto, of course, does not shrink. And as the plastic shrinks and the metal doesn't give, the plastic eventually just breaks. And as we can see, this is not just one gear, it's not just a simple gear, it's actually a set of two gears. And there is normally a spring wrapped around here to spring load them together so they can move relative to each other like this. Now what's the point of that, you might ask? Well, here's one that is all together with the spring in place, and you might notice that this one's slightly thicker. This came in a box of parts I got from somebody that used to repair these things. So I don't know if this is for a slightly different printer version, or if this was a later version of the gear or whatever. But anyhow, basically it's the same. So these are spring-loaded so they move relative to each other like that. Now why would you want to do that? Well, this is an anti-backlash gear set. And you might say, well, what does anti-backlash mean? So imagine you've got some teeth on a gear coming together like this. And as this gear rotates around, it's going to hit these teeth on this other gear. And you're going to have a situation like this. And if I reverse, I'm going to have to travel just a little bit before I start making contact again. And if I reverse again, it's going to be like this. There's backlash in there, a little bit of slop. And there's no way to avoid that. So what they did is they added a double gear arrangement here, if we can get zoomed in, like this. And you offset these by one tooth. And this rides on this gear like this, so you always have, no matter what direction it's going, you always have a tooth of this spring-loaded gear against the gear that's driving it. That way you reduce the amount of backlash to almost zero. It's a nice, simple, and cheap way of taking care of backlash mechanically on a system like this. And it works great, except for, the vestiges of time and this hub cracking. With the brass gears, the pinion gears, I was able to get those reproduced because those were just a simple gear. This is a set of gears. It's a lot more complex. It would have to be injection molded, and molds are very expensive, so that wasn't an option in this case. So let me show you the general idea in this repair. I first had the idea of maybe making a custom spring to wrap around here, and there's not a whole lot of room. Actually, that's kind of a problem. And the more I tried fooling around with springs of this size, the less likelihood I thought there was I would come up with something that would work, try to make it myself. And then I happen to remember about these sorts of hose clamps. And I went looking, and I actually found one that has a 3mm inside diameter. And it fits really, really tightly on that hub like that. But of course we can't have these ears sticking up here. Those would get in the way. So I took a Dremel tool and I cut the ears off, and we wind up with this. If you try to cut the ears off with side cutters, it bends the wire slightly, and that causes problems because it's hitting other things. There's not a lot of clearance in this printer mechanism. But if you do this, it works out pretty well. It's just a little difficult to put on. So to try to install this guy, what we have to do is this is difficult enough to do. Trying to do it on camera is going to be impossible, I think. Okay, there we go. So I am holding that loop of the spring in place. I'm going to take these teeny tiny pliers and just grab a hold of the ends of it like that. Trying to pop it down there on that hub. And trying to work my way around the camera is not making this any easier. Okay, well that's kind of partially on there. Maybe I can pick it up to where I can see it now. You can kind of still see it in the camera. And I can see both ends of the loop here. Anyhow, I've had this on and off here a few times. There we go. We got it on there. Okay. Like that. It's a little difficult. It's 3 times as difficult or 10 times as difficult to do on camera. But you get that really stiff spring loop on there. You want it on there just enough that you're not fouling against the spring here. And that should hold that onto the shaft. So let's take apart our printer and we'll fix the actual gear on there and see if it works. You might remember last time when we took this printer apart to clean it up, I found an extra case screw like this just rattling around in there and couldn't figure out where it went, so I taped it right there, thinking when I took this apart again I would look into where that went. So the only thing I hadn't really taken apart before was this board. And so we rotate that board off the top there. Look what we find. Yep, right there. That is where that screw went. Just think about all the damage that lonesome little screw might have done if it landed in just the wrong spot on the board. Make sure all these are tight. Yep, okay. And yeah, we noticed in the other video how this connector must have been messed up and it got soldered directly to the board there. Okay, anyhow, I'll put this board back on, and then I've already got the printer mech pulled out. You can see it's missing back here. And we'll see how to try to fix that gear. Okay, here's our printer mechanism. These are one of the brass gears that we installed last time, pressed on there. This brass gear drives this gear, and this drives our spring-loaded gears here. The problem is that, see, it's not feeding paper. This gear set, because that split hub just rotates on the shaft. So to get those off of there, we need to pop this C-clip out of there. You just cover those up with your finger. It'll keep them from flying off to who knows where. Slip him off of there like that. And this is broke, so it's going to slide off of here pretty easy, just like that. Oh, look. The spring that spring loads it has kind of come off of there. So I'll put this spring on, and I'll put that hoop on there just like I showed in the close-up, and then I'll show you the reassembly. Well, a bit of an unexpected problem here. This is the gear I took off this printer, and you might just be able to see it's got one little nub right here, whereas this one has a nub here and a nub here, and that's what the spring is captured by. This one's also got a split hub. This also sometimes happens to these guys, that one or both of these little protrusions that's supposed to capture the spring will break off, and it's usually the one that's on this back gear with the hub. If both break off, they'll just slip completely past each other and it won't drive, even if the hub's okay. Somebody commented on the last video they had that problem, and they shoved a piece of cardstock between the two gears, and that jammed them together good enough to work. So that's not an ideal situation, but I guess it's better than it not working at all. Luckily, I have this one gear which came off a junk printer. It's split, but it's got the spring in place that spring loads these guys. So we should be able to slip our doodly-doo one here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera because it's a lot easier off camera, and then we'll reassemble it. Okay, I got the little spring ring on there, and I marked a couple teeth with a Sharpie marker. It says in the manual that when you put the other gear in there, you want these to be offset by one tooth. So that'll just give us an easy way to see. And I'm kind of pressing on the feed roller right here. I'll press that on, and it is more difficult to push on this time because we're kind of clamping the plastic hub together. Okay, that seems like it's as far as it wants to go, and now if I hold the paper feed roll, I can't move this gear. It seems to be moving the paper just fine. Okay, so here is our counter gear. Now this just spins on this shaft. So I am starting it so it's contacting only this outside gear. I'm going to try to offset the two of these by one tooth and push him the rest of the way on there like that. There we go. See, now we can feed paper. How about that? And then the last little tricky thing to do is to get the damn it clip on there. It's called a damn it clip because at least 50% of the time when you pop it off there, you wind up shouting damn it as it flies across the room. Okay, well, I'm going to put this clip on there without the camera in my face, and we'll get this mechanism back in the printer and we'll see if it actually works now. Okay, I have added some pins. I've got the power cord plugged in. When we turn this thing on, it should run the pin carriage over here and go ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk till it sees that the black pin is on top, and then it'll draw 4 squares. That is a power on test. Let's see what happens. Oh no! Okay, the reason that wasn't working is because I don't have this set of gears pushed far enough that way. With this gear fully in place, the back face of this is rubbing up against the front face of this. And of course they're traveling in opposite directions at 2 different speeds, so that doesn't work very well, and it overwhelms our poor little stepper motor. So I will push this set of gears on a little further and reset that gear, and we'll try it again. Okay, so I have this reset. I don't know if you can see it. There is a gap between there now, and that moves rather freely. I'm happy. And I've taken the pins out and decided to be a little less ambitious with the second test, and we'll see if oops, that's not what I wonder if I have this. I'll have to check to see if I have these wires routed correctly. Anyhow, we'll turn it on now and see if it feeds the paper back and forth, and then we'll put the pins in and see if it draws squares. Ha 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 ha. That looks promising. Freaking awesome. Okay, that is black. Okay. I can only rotate this anti-clockwise from this point of view. Okay. And although this looks brown, it's actually green. And red. Okay, let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Yeah, these pins are not the best. What was the other self-test? I think hold line feed and turn it on. It'll do the 4 squares first and then the character set. Yeah, I got a little of each color that time. Oh yeah. Oh, some very, very teeny tiny print. Oh, it's because I have it set in 80 column mode. Holy moly, I don't even know if you can see that. Let's see if I can get you zoomed in on that text. That is some really teeny tiny text. So as you can see, it is printing. It's doing a good job forming the characters. These pins are not the greatest. They are getting a little better with use though. And it is pulling our paper through there correctly. So I would think we can count this as a positive step. Well, how about that? We used a hose clamp to fix the gear on a vintage printer. It's kind of an unusual use case, but hey, it seems to work. I'll be testing this some more, doing some more tests like we did on the Commodore 64 with the other printer we worked on at the same time as this. I'll put a link to that video, by the way, in the description down below. So if you didn't happen to catch that, I looked at this in a TRS-80 CGP 115, which is basically the same printer put out by Radio Shack, and it also has a serial interface though. This one just has the parallel interface. Incidentally, I did set the dip switches on the back of this thing to 40 column, and it still printed the small character set. The Radio Shack printer printed a larger character set, so that's just an interesting difference between the ROMs on these two guys. So let me know what you think. Now if you have one of these printers that has a broken paper feed gear. First, make sure you've got both little nubs on that and it's holding that spring in place that spring loads the two gears together. And if it's just that your hub that's cracked, let me know. Look here on my channel page, and if you click, it'll show you my email address. Send me an email. I've got some more of these clips. I'll send some out to people. The only thing I ask is let me know how it works for you. Does that solve your problem? I'd like to get some more, more people trying this and see if it's a good patch. It's not a permanent fix, but I think it'll get some of these printers going for a little while longer. And the way 3D printers are going with the resin printers, reproducing some of these gears like this on a small scale is getting more and more possible every day. Thanks to everyone who helps support the Hey Birt channel through Patreon and other means. It's greatly appreciated. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. And until next time, bye.